talk a lot about supports, and one of the critical supports I think that young mothers need, or parenting mothers need, is who do I turn to actually visualize what this success that I want is actually going to look like? How do I actualize that? And so I know that I personally have done mentoring of teen moms through the New York Junior League and other organizations, and I've found that it's been incredibly rewarding for me and for those women, right? Because they often don't meet women who look like them, who have lived their life experience and have then taken it to the next step. So I want to hear a little bit more from both from my colleague here about the mentoring say about the mentoring they do, as well as from Big Brother, Big Sister, and think about what successes they see through the mentoring relationships.
As I mentioned earlier, we have a very targeted focus on not letting young men off. When we talk about barriers to education or barriers to other successful activities, the reality is it took teamwork to get the baby here, so we need others to play this position. It's actually a point that's very important to me because I actually lost my father at the age of 5. So my mother wasn't a teen mother, but I saw the challenges of not having a male in the house. And it wasn't until I was around 16 or 17 and I actually took my mother's car to the mechanic, and I noticed that he gave me a lower price than he gave my mother. I knew absolutely nothing about cars. But the fact that I was there to play that role and to support my mom in that situation made me realize that there is a tremendous role for the men to play in this piece. I have 2 young daughters, ages 1 and 5, and I also understand that in the household, children look to both parents for different things. My daughters go to my wife for something specifically. When it's thunder, they're coming to daddy because they see daddy for security. Now, a lot of our young men are just simply afraid that they do not know how to do this. So one of the things that we've done with support with the Open Society Foundation, we created a framework and an initiative called Mentor. So it's MENTOUR, with the tagline, recruit, reclaim, and restore. And the bottom line is that young men have to understand that there is a role that they play in the relationship. And within that framework, we built in a peer mentoring where older fathers are supporting younger fathers. A lot of our young men feel like they don't have someone to reach out to. The same thing goes for young ladies. I had a conversation about 2 months ago with one of our mentees in Chicago, and she told me that the young man that the baby's father is just not stepping up. She wants to go to college, but he's not playing his role. On top of that, she's dealing with other circumstances. I mean, she shared with me that she actually has more funeral programs than boys. So we're talking about trying to overcome the odds in environments that are just unreal. And as adults, and I'm not really concerned about creating strong mentoring programs. I'm actually more concerned about changing the culture and the way that we operate. We didn't call it mentoring 20 years ago. People just stepped up and did what they need to do. So the training is very important. The work that we're doing with the faith-based community is very important because we also have to remove the stigma around pregnancy. Stop judging, do more loving, and then we'll start to see a lot of changes in the community. The other piece to this is that financial literacy is a huge part to this, as well as media literacy. A lot of the information that we received slow cooked, as I would say, we now get microwave. So we need people to be around to help them process these the information that they receive. And young people just want to have a target. As a mentor, my job is not to tell someone what they should become, it's to find out what they want to become and then be the winner in their winners. That's the way that we have to sort of align that. And so it's a very critical piece for us to make sure that the men are involved, because I think that once they play their role, things start to turn around.
So I think mentoring happens in so many different ways, as you were speaking about. Our model, we try to match a young mother with someone who's 21 years older who has the time and commitment to spend with a young mother. And our volunteers come from all walks of life. A lot of times they have a lot in common with the young person, sometimes they don't. And to me, I see it as a dual investment. If you're investing in the mother, you're also investing in the child. And society-wide, I feel like we need to recognize and see that as for what it is. And I feel like a lot of the relationships, what I've seen become a real sign of success is when also you start other people in that relationship. So if, you know, the young mother is doing better, her boyfriend also benefits. You know, they have better communication, and through the resources she has available to her, she may be able to include him. Because I know it is a challenge. We're not doing a great job about including young fathers, making them feel welcome, and that they can be active participants in the relationship that is being a parent. So I definitely think that, you know, we try to find different ways in which mentoring can apply to all those different people in that relationship. And that's what I really enjoy seeing in my job, because, like I said, our mentors are all different ages, all different professions. What they have in common is that they want to give their time, their attention, and that that young person is receptive to it. And, you know, it has an open mind, because there are so many different ways in which they can benefit. And I think it goes both ways too. For those mentors, they learn a lot from observing, you know, a young person, like you're saying, the resiliency that they already have, the skills that they may not be aware that they have, and sometimes a mentor helps them become more self-aware of those things, obviously building confidence. So, you know, I think it goes both ways, and that's what's really rewarding about seeing those relationships develop.
I think you both touched on a good point in that the importance of mentoring is key, but what I found as a mentor, and I think it's been a particular challenge, is some of the young women don't know how to enter that relationship and to, not exploit it, if you will, but take advantage of that relationship, both you know, getting all they can from that positive role model and learning how to take that relationship to the next step once they've, you know, built up the trust and all of that. So I really would like to delve in a little bit more deeply around, one, you know, given young mothers' schedules, they're very busy, childcare is always an issue. I'm like, my childcare is an issue and I'm not a young mother anymore. How do we create a relationship that is sustainable, viable, successful, and like, what do you advise young women about when they're entering these relationships? What are they supposed to expect? How do they interact? And how do they make sure that they're treating the relationship with respect so that everybody comes to the table and is willing to keep digging in and doing the hard work?
I think one part of that is making sure that the lines of communication remain open. One thing that we found, you actually mentored at one of our sites with the D.R.E.A.M, is that our mentors, when they're not properly trained about the population, they actually may drop out of the program. And a lot of times, our young women have situations that they have to deal with, whether it be childcare, work, so on and so forth. So I think the communication piece is very critical. Also for our mentors, we have to, because the mentors' ages vary, understanding that we may need to shift to different forms of communication. In the world of texting and Facebook and Twitter, our young people tend to want to lean towards that. And then sometimes we have an intergenerational challenge where we have mentors who don't necessarily understand that framework. The drawback to that is when you're constantly on Facebook and Twitter and texting, you do lose very critical skills in communicating. Mentoring may not always come in a very formal fashion. When I think about mentoring that I received as a young person, it was through sports. So the point is that you have to also remember that despite the challenges that you're facing in life, you're always on the internet. Somebody's always watching you. You have to keep that flow despite any challenges that you're facing and make sure that the lines of communication remain open.
I also wanted to add to the value of training. I think one of the things we want to keep in mind is that mentors are in fact everyday people who are looking to do a good deed by investing in the lives of someone else. And so I mentioned earlier that I do a lot of capacity building training, also faith-based setting schools. But it's really about giving them those fundamental building blocks about what relationship is. We talk about these concepts very freely and openly, but relationship to me may mean something very different from a 15-year-old from the South Bronx, or someone who's a 16-year-old from Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. So part of what I do is provide concrete tools around adolescent development in the context of the world today, so that media is really important also to understand what are their dominant forms of communication. Also around messaging and communication, because you can really turn a 16-year-old off if you don't really get them, or a 17-year-old. So if you don't understand the lingo or how to flip the script, if you will, to connect with them, and it doesn't mean that you have to disassociate from who you are, but you have to, again, be able to reach, teach, and connect with these young people if you're really about helping the young people at their margin. And the last thing I talk about is that mentoring is modeling. So if I'm not able to stand through the storm of building this relationship with you, how am I going to expect that you're going to replicate healthy relationships in your personal world as well? So there's a lot that really goes into creating those building blocks of understanding how do we create a relationship. And essentially, a successful and healthy mentoring relationship is about how do I peacefully connect with somebody who was a stranger at the end of the day. There's no manual to that, but we need critical tools about how we reach, teach, and connect with our youth. And the last piece that I want to say is that back to the mentoring at Inwood House, because we have a residential capacity for our young women and the toddlers or the babies, one of the things that I mentioned, the power of messaging and communication. When there's a young man there, it's good evening, good afternoon, Dad, how are you today? It's glad to see you holding your baby, because those things help to really shore up the foundation of that family unit. Because to expect that a 17-year-old, 18-year-old really going to be able to weather the emotional storms that come with young parenting is to really be dreaming another dream. And so we really